A very good morning to all of you. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about a topic that's personally very close to me. Does passion pay? Should you take up a job or start your own company? This is a question most of us have grappled with at some point in our lives. But what really is passion? Passion is defined as a strong enthusiasm or a desire towards something. Specifically, when it comes to our careers, it refers to chasing your dreams, doing what you love, following your heart. But does passion really pay? Growing up, we've all had a certain notion of what life is supposed to be. We're expected to study hard in school so that we get into a good college. You're expected to work hard in college so that you land a good job. You then get married, you get settled, right? It's almost like our entire journey is charted out for us before we even have a chance to decide whether or not that's the life we want for ourselves. But what if we're not meant for that kind of life? What if we are meant for a different path? No one really prepares you for a plan B. It's almost as if there isn't supposed to be one. Well, here's something that would cheer you up. Even adults don't have it all figured out. Growing up, I was personally unsure myself on what I wanted to do. I took up science in the 11th and the 12th because I was a good kid and a good student throughout my school years. I then switched to law as my undergrad degree. I did that for 5 years. I then ended up doing journalism for some time. I switched to advertising. I learned tattooing for 6 months, went back to law for a year, and then successfully started my own company 8 years ago. There's a lot of things that I have done over the years as well. And throughout each and every one of those things, I was trying to figure out what it is that I truly love doing. Let's start off with the first half of the question, right? To job or not to job? I think that is a question that a lot of you guys listening in today would probably be thinking of. A lot of you have probably sat for your first rounds of interviews, applied to all your dream companies hoping to land that perfect job. Some of you may have, in fact, even applied to a couple of other safe companies just to make sure that you have something at the end of the day after you graduate. Now, before you actually decide whether or not to take up that first job offer, and yes, I know it is tempting to make sure that you do take up that first job offer. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that we end up choosing a job or we end up taking an offer more from a FOMO feeling, right? What if I don't get another job? What if I reject this company today and I want to apply to them tomorrow, but I'm not able to get it? So let me just take what I have in my hand right now. Uh, I would urge each and every one of you listening in today to actually take some more time before you actually finalize your job. There's a lot of things that are very important for us to actually consider. Yes, your pay or your compensation is very important. You are putting in your time, you're putting your effort, you're putting your resources and your bandwidth, and you want to make sure that you are adequately compensated for it. Yes, it is important to work for a good company that has brand value to your CV because that will help you in your career. But there's a couple of other things that we often don't pay enough attention to. It's very important for us to actually research on a company before we decide to go ahead and apply or go ahead and decide to take up that job. Research on your team. These are people you're going to be spending a lot of time with over the next couple of months or years, depending on how long you actually stick with the job. Research on your boss. I cannot tell you how important it is for you to know exactly who you're going to be working with, who you're going to report to. A great boss is someone who will actually teach you a lot, is someone who will actually help your career progress. Unfortunately, if you're stuck with the boss that you don't get along with or things don't work out, it could be the most, it could be the least fun part of your life. Most importantly, research on the work culture. Different organizations have very different working styles. Life in a startup is very different from life in an organized, larger organization. When you are working at a startup, it's extremely fast paced. There are new things, there are new challenges every single day. There's a lot of decisions that will come directly onto you. And it's an ever changing organization. You have more systems, more processes, more structures in place. And it's a very different sort of work lifestyle. I would also recommend reaching out to people on LinkedIn, people who are working at that organization, people who have been with that organization previously, and understand from them how their company works, what the expectations are. This is something that I tell every single person I interview, right? There are too many Mondays that you're going to have in your life. Don't do something where you wake up every single Monday hating what you're doing and hoping for something else. Make sure that whatever you do, you're happy doing, you're sure of what you are doing, and it'll make sure that you actually enjoy every single aspect of your job. Coming back to my journey, as I mentioned, I have done a bunch of things. I've studied law, I've studied science, I've also done a whole host of internships and jobs. Now, although I didn't realize it at that time, all the various things that I was doing have actually helped me get to where I am today. And they've actually had a much, much bigger impact on my life today than I probably even gave it credit for earlier. The one thing that remained constant, whether I did law or science or journalism or advertising or any other thing, was that I gave my 200% to every single thing. I made sure that no matter what, I was learning something new every single day. And even if I did not continue in this specific field or this internship or this job for a very, very long time, I took out something valuable from this so that I felt like my time was actually utilized well. I'll give you a couple of examples from my journey. Journalism definitely helped me improve my writing skills. When you're working with TV and radio, as I was for BBC, every single word you write, every single word you speak is of paramount importance. Everything that you do say eventually is worth its weight in gold. These writing skills have helped me tremendously even today, whether it's writing an email, it's reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, or even preparing a pitch. At my advertising job, I actually started off because I loved copywriting. I found it to be a lot of fun, and I was actually pushed into client servicing and negotiation. Now, to be very honest, when that happened to me, it wasn't something that I was too keen on doing. It's something I personally didn't enjoy, but it's probably the single most important skill that I use today on a day-to-day basis. No matter what job you're in, no matter what company you're working for, client negotiations and client servicing are two skills that you're going to use directly or indirectly almost on a day-to-day basis. The third and probably my most favorite example is tattooing. Now, I'm guessing you guys are wondering what I probably learned in those 6 months tattooing that I use at my startup today, right? Let me tell you this. When you are tattooing, you have zero room for error. Zero room. The amount of attention to detail that goes into tattooing is probably incomparable or second to none with any other thing that I have done. I used to actually spend 6 days a week at the tattoo parlor that I did work with, learning and improving. Out of those 6 days, we had to spend one entire day every week. That's about 10 or 11 hours continuously at a stretch every week, just cleaning the equipment. Honestly, is probably one of the most boring, mind numbing things that you can do. At that time, I actually found it very, very boring. It's something that I did not enjoy doing at all. But when you are forced to do that same thing again and again for 10 or 11 hours at a stretch, and you have to make sure that every piece of equipment that you are working on is 100% sanitized and clean and ready to use, you actually understand the importance of hard work, of attention to detail, and being completely thorough with everything you do, no matter how small, no matter how big. This is probably one of the most important lessons that I have learned in my journey, which I use every single day at work, and is something that I try to inculcate in every single team member. So I know that's a lot of yarn and it's a lot of life advice, a lot of do's and don'ts for each of you guys. So let's discuss something a little more fun, so something a little more lighthearted. Let's talk about unicorns. Unicorns are the internet's favorite animal, probably the most discussed animal on social media, and probably the most celebrated word in the startup space. Here's a fun fact about unicorns. In India, we have more than 50,000 startups as on today. And by the end of 2021, we expect to have about 50 unicorns. That's less than one unicorn for every 1,000 startups in the country. Here's one more fun fact about startups. Over 90% of startups fail. 90%. I was actually a good kid and a good student throughout school and college, but 90% is a lot more than I actually got in my board exams. What we often see when it comes to startups is the glamorous side, the billion-dollar valuations, the founder exits, the IPOs, the success stories. But there's a whole lot more that actually goes into starting and selling off your own organization. There's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of struggles, there's a lot of setbacks, a lot of failures. And unfortunately, this is not something we give enough importance to, and it's not something that we discuss often enough. I think it's important for us to all realize that starting your own organization is not a 100-meter sprint. Starting your own organization is more like a marathon. It takes dedication, it takes persistence, it takes stubbornness. day in and day out, non-stop, 24 hours. It's not something that's easy. It's probably not something that's everyone's cup of tea. I'm not here to discourage you. I'm just here to tell you what the actual truth is. However, there are two things that can actually help you succeed when you are planning to start your own organization and will give you a greater chance of success. Firstly, your partners, your co-founders. These are people you have to choose very, very wisely. Think of it like you're getting into a marriage with these people. You're going to be spending almost your entire day, almost your entire time, or entire waking time with your co-founders. These are people you need to trust. These are people who have to have your back. You're going to have a lot of bad days at your organization. You're going to have times when you're feeling low. You're going to have times when you're doubting yourself, when you are doubting your own opinions and your own perspectives. It's very, very important to have people on board who you can trust blindly, people who you know are there for you, people who will basically help pull you up during those tough days, and people who can collectively take your vision and your idea and actually grow it into something much, much bigger. The second most important thing that will determine, or that will determine to a large extent, whether every startup, every organization, every company is only as good as its team. I know this sounds cliche, but let me give you an example. When we started our organization about 7 or 8 years ago, the first 5 or 6 people that actually joined our organization as the first 5 or 6 team members are with us even today. Each of these people put their faith in an organization that was just starting off. They weren't really sure on whether they would actually make it this far. To be honest, even we weren't sure whether we would make it this far. When we hired those people, even we took a bit of a gamble because none of them had any previous experience. This was the first job that all of them were doing. Some of them did not have very strong academic backgrounds either. I'm very proud to say today that each of these 5 or 6 people is still with us. Each of them is managing their own team of 20, 30, 40, 50 people. And from all the successes that we've had as an organization, from all the milestones that we've achieved, this is probably one of the stats and one of the highlights that gives me more satisfaction personally as a founder. If I have to sum up my entire startup journey, and I know it's been a long journey, but if I can somehow sum it up into three learnings or three pieces of advice, it would probably be this. The first most important thing is that every startup founder's job, every startup founder's role can be defined in three simple words: get it done. As a startup founder, you're going to face a lot of issues on a daily basis. It's very easy to blame other people. It's very easy to point fingers. It's very easy to make excuses for why something didn't happen. It doesn't matter. As a startup founder, you are expected to lead the way. As a startup founder, you are expected to get the job done. We've firstly packed orders, we've answered customer calls, we've delivered products, we've set up our warehouse on our own because we wanted to save some money on labor costs. We've pretty much done everything from start to finish when it came to starting our own organization because we did not have the luxury of giving it to someone else. And as a startup, you will realize very, very early on that in your early days, you are your salesperson, you are your marketing person, you are your customer care person, you are your HR, you are every single thing and more because you do not have the privilege or the luxury of having a larger team to actually take care of these things. Secondly, everything is figure outable. Let me repeat that. Everything is figure outable. Except for rocket science, nothing is rocket science. Yes, you will face new challenges and new problems every single day. Some of these you will be prepared for. Most of these you will not be prepared for. More often than not, you will have failures. More often than not, things will not go as per plan. What will actually help determine whether or not you're able to pull through is the mindset with which you approach work every single day. If you are in that frame of mind that no matter what challenges I face today, no matter what issues I face today, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to make sure that I find the solution and I take my company forward. As long as you have that mindset, there's a much greater chance of you succeeding than not. The third piece of advice that I'd like to give when it comes to starting your own organization, and this is probably something that's personally closest to me, is that 99% right is 100% wrong. 99% right is 100% wrong. Good enough is not good enough. As a startup founder, every single shortcut that you take not only directly impacts you, but also impacts your co founders, your team, and the organization as a whole. As a co-founder, you are responsible for each and every one of the people in your organization and indirectly even their families. It is very, very important for every startup founder to understand the responsibility that comes with starting their own organization, the responsibility that comes with being responsible for an entire team, and make sure that you do not settle for less. You have to inculcate that culture in yourself and in your entire team from day one, that unless you are 200% satisfied with the quality of work, with the output of work, it is not okay. You do it again, you do it again, you do it again, no matter what. But you make sure that every piece of work that you put out there is 100% exactly how you want it to be. Especially as startup founders, it is very, very important to make sure that that work culture and that work ethics sets in from the beginning itself. Now we've spoken about jobs. We've sorry. So we've spoken about getting a job. We've spoken about starting your own organization. Let's go back to our question. What makes sense, right? Does passion really pay? A handful of people probably graduate from college and start their own organization almost immediately and they succeed. These people are the exception, not the rule. What I would personally recommend to every single person listening in today is get a job first. Take your time, learn at someone else's expense. This will give you the time and the bandwidth to actually work on your idea, to talk to people, to understand the viability and the feasibility. What this will also help you with is to understand how companies actually function. How do people build teams? How do people manage teams? How do people lead teams? It's also very, very important to understand that while your startup will be based on whatever product or service or idea it is that you are selling, there's a lot of other things that you will also need to learn on the go as a co-founder. Spending time at someone else's expense developing your idea gives you that flexibility, it gives you that cushion. It's also very, very important for people to spend that time earning some money and having a backup in case things don't work out. So my personal advice to all of you will be, do not rush into starting your own organization. Yes, you may have a great idea. Yes, you would be very, very confident that this idea could potentially solve problems for a lot of people. But your idea is only 1% of your challenge. Execution is 99%. So make sure that when you are planning to start your own organization, you're a lot more prepared. To end this talk, it's been 8 years since I started my own organization, and I've just gotten my first TED talk. The moral of the story is work hard, get some experience, make sure that you're putting your 200% into every single thing that you do. Most importantly, make sure that you are giving yourself every chance of success when you actually decide to start your own company. If you can actually manage to do these things, I am very, very confident that each of you at some point in the future will be giving your first TED talk to a new set of college students who are embarking on their career and who are taking that first step into the big bad corporate world. Thank you.